Patrice Lumumba, the first post-independence legally elected Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo, was assassinated on the 17th of January 1961. And for much of the past year, there have been plans for his sacred human remains of the DRC Prime Minister of the Congo's first post-independence country, Patrice Emery Lumumba, to finally be returned to his children in Belgium and then repatriated to the Congo. Originally scheduled for a ceremony on June the 30th, 2021, the 61st anniversary of the country's independence passed with Lumumba's remains still in the custody of Belgian authorities. Half a century since his death, the DRC is beset with conflicts in parts and widespread poverty. It is endowed with exceptional natural resources, including minerals such as cobalt and copper, but the country remains poor. African Affairs analyst Issa Khomo is our guest on the matter, and he joins us now via Zoom. Issa, thanks very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, mate, and thank you for having me.
Patrice Lumumba, most people have heard the name, but perhaps don't quite know his story. Very significant. He was at the forefront of liberating his country, but sadly was in office for a very brief period of time.
Yes, but just let me make one correction about the returns of Lumumba's remains. What they're returning and what they're hanging to is just a finger.
Right.
Nothing more. When Lumumba was killed by the Belgians, his body was taken and dissolved in acid. But the Belgian commander just cut off a finger as a souvenir, just to explain how they really viewed the man. And that is what is scheduled to be returned to Lumumba's children. That's a sad issue. Number two, the Belgians have actually built a stadium, and not a stadium, a statue, and they actually, I think, named a street or a park after Lumumba. That's in Brussels. Now that is the height of hypocrisy. There's been no apology or nothing to seek redress about what they did. But Lumumba, is coming back to your question, Lumumba was very well known and is a man who really ruled Congo as an elected prime minister for no less than 6 months. In that period when Congo got independence, to 6 months after, he was captured by the chief of the army, that was Mobutu, and handed over to the Belgians who killed him. Lumumba seemed to be a Pan-Africanist. He was very close to Nkrumah. And the story of how he actually came to meet Nkrumah, it's another long story, but I think it needs to be mentioned. With the first Pan-Africanist meeting which took place in Ghana, that's after Ghana independence, Nkrumah had invited political leaders from African countries. The East Africans went over, and also the Zanzibaris. The Zanzibari delegation was led by Abdurrahman Babu. He was the leader of a Marxist party in Zanzibar. And then when going to Kinshasa, to Ghana, he stopped together with the Tanganyikans at Kinshasa for a connecting flight, and they were there for some time. In that time, they looked for Congolese politicians. Eventually, they got hold of Nkrumah, and they took him as one of their delegates, and they flew him all the way to Ghana. That's how Nkrumah got hold of Nkrumah. But then you find that Nkrumah was a Pan-Africanist, and in his way forward, he actually took the non-aligned stance. But then with problems which started, mainly because of the Belgians, who actually sent troops by force. And not only that, they supported a secessionist prime minister in the province of Katanga, today's province of Shaba. That was Moise Tshombe. And that started the fighting within the Congo. At the same time, they co-opted the president, Kasavubu, who was actually at loggerheads with Lumumba. But then you find from then on, the Western countries started interfering in the issues of the Congo. It was the Americans, it was the Belgians, and also the French were involved. And from then, this way, Lumumba was captured and actually killed. Basically, there was an agreement in the Western countries that Lumumba had to be removed. That in the sphere of the Cold War that was going on. As Lumumba had actually invited and actually accepted some assistance from technical assistance from the Russians. This because the Belgians, when they left Congo with no technical assistance or means. They even removed plans for the sewage system and everything like that. So that forced Lumumba to actually get these technical people from the Soviets. But that was seen that he was a communist and had to be removed.
At the heart of all of this, was it about minerals? Because that seems to have been a theme for decades later, and some might say even now, particularly in the East.
Well, you see, the Congo is a wonderful place. Yeah, the Congo, first of all, before you get to the minerals, let's talk about the climate. I mean, the place is a place where areas where they get 12 months of rain. Therefore, the Congo is a place which never knows any drought. It's tropical, and it's got the second biggest tropical forest after the Amazon. But then when it came to the minerals, the Belgians, when they took it over and they started sending their geologists, the first statement that came from Belgium said that the Congo is a geological scandal, in the sense that there was everything in the Congo, and it was in abundance, not in drips and drabs. So you find that the Congo is actually home to most of the non-ferrous strategic minerals. They are there. I won't talk about coltan, I'll talk about things like cobalt, uranium, the whole lot. They are found in the Congo in great amounts. And then you've got gold, a lot of gold, and then you've got diamonds. The Congolese diamonds are almost all over the country, and they've got one advantage. These are not pipe diamonds, which are found in old volcanic pipes, but these are alluvial, in the sense that those pipes have collapsed and the diamonds is spread over on land. So that in places like Kasai, you have got to get a permission to even dig a toilet, to dig a hole. And when you dig a hole, there is somebody from the minerals department to check if there are any pieces of diamonds which are going to come out from that hole. So that is what the Congo is. And then again, there's got a very big potential of oil. In fact, it has got oil. Oil has been found in Uganda, the border area, and that deposit actually flows westwards into the Congo. So the Congo is replete with non-strategic minerals, non-ferrous strategic minerals. And of course, it has got all the iron. So that is the real Congo story.
All right, I'm going to play What If, and I just wonder if you might be able to take us down some scenarios. Had he not been assassinated and had he lived, what kind of DRC might we have seen? And the things that we see today, do you think in a significant way are the fruit of his assassination?
Well, there was no way that Lumumba could have lived. There was no way, given the climate of the Cold War, and not only given the climate of the Cold War and given the wealth of the Congo DRC. You should remember that the uranium that went and that produced the atom bombs, the Nagasaki and the Hiroshima bombs, they came from the Congo. So basically, if he had lived, he could not have lived in a situation of the Cold War. There was no way. That's the thing, that we should not place everything on the shoulders of Lumumba. Lumumba was actually identified for elimination simply because of the Cold War. Had the Cold War been not there, and he had lived, Congo would have been a different thing. Congo would have been a much more stable country because Congo, after independence, the first thing which came, it was this balkanization. When I say balkanization, it is that it was being fragmented. It was fragmented by the Belgians. The Belgians wanted an independent state of the copper-rich Katanga region. And again, the Belgians wanted an independent state of the diamond-rich Kasai region. In the Katanga region, they had Chombe, Moise Chombe, who declared independence. In Kasai, they had Kalonji, Chief Kalonji, King Kalonji, who declared the Kingdom of Kalonji. And the sad thing is this, that some of Lumumba's close associates and intellectuals and academicians, basically the father to Felix Tshisekedi, the present Prime Minister or President of Congo, that is Etienne Tshisekedi. He's a Muluba from the Kasai. He left Lumumba and went and joined the independent Kasai region. So you find that within his own government, there were already division. So had he lived, he would have had a very big job of actually putting the Congo together. And had he lived, Congo would have actually been dismantled. They would not have allowed Lumumba to rule over Congo as it is. As it is right now, there are tacit plans, if anything goes bad, to break up Congo into 2 or 3 states. Those are plans which are not, they're not secret anymore. They're there within the American circles, they're there within the French circles, they're there within the Belgian circles, in fact, the EU. If Congo gets to a point where it's going to be not an anti, but far away from the West, they're going to foster that plan. And as it is now with this new, it's not a Cold War, but it's another war with the influence of the Chinese being fought. That is the scenario. So the leaders who are going to come to Congo have got to be neutral leaders who have got to be accepted by the West. That is the situation to this very day.
Perhaps as we start wrapping up this conversation, what was he like as a person? One reads about him being very popular, and part of that was his personality and charisma.
Well, there's those who know him. Lumumba was a person who was a people's person. Lumumba was brilliant. Those who know him say that Lumumba, whenever he goes, as a president, prime minister, or whatever, he could stop in the middle of people and start talking to them at their own level. And that's the thing which got him in trouble, because when he was running away from Mobutu's forces, he had stopped a crowd gathered around him, and he was talking to the crowd. So now that is what Lumumba was. Lumumba was the man of the people. He understood the politics of the Congo and the Congo from the very lowest level upwards. He was not an elitist.
All right, and that's where we'll leave it as we remember him on this tragic day. Thank you so much indeed for helping us go down memory lane and remember one of these characters in Africa's history that stood large. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's our colleague Issa Khomo, who's with Channel Africa, speaking to us about this day in history that Patrice Lumumba, first Prime Minister of Congo, was killed, assassinated, and he was just 36 years old at the time. It reminds us of someone young and influential in this country, Steve Biko, also dying very young in his 30s. He would have been 97 this year had he lived, and no doubt he would have had a significant contribution had he been allowed to live in the DRC.